inspiring second gen presentation. It's a difficult act to follow, I believe, although we didn't get to see it, unfortunately, but the reports were excellent. So yeah, I can't promise the same level of inspiration, but I'll do my best to at least deliver something. Despite my laptop, which has been playing tricks with me, I had a lovely, well, not lovely, I had a slideshow. You've been spared a slideshow presentation, James, thanks to divine intervention, we'll call it, anyway. But I will struggle to remember what I put down on it, so you'll have to bear with me, because I might, at some stage, I might decide to do all its virus checks and everything, and eventually come up with the presentation which I had. But anyway, I'll try and remember what was on it. What I wanted to talk about actually was gratitude, and my title was to live one day in heavenly Ireland, or the heavenly Ireland. You know, in our church, we hear a lot of talk about heavenly UK and heavenly Korea and heavenly America. I think it's called Shin, like Shin Albania in Korean, or Shin Europe, or Shin Ireland. And it looks awful corny when you write it down on your PowerPoint presentation. You know, heavenly Ireland, like as if, my God, like so far away sometimes from the reality. But is that the right attitude, really, when we are, you know, charged with the responsibility from true parents to restore the nation, or to bring about a heavenly nation? And I suppose in the Irish context, I'm always, you know, as a political animal, I always think about unification. So True Father once said his desire was to live just one day in the heavenly unified Korea. This is a very powerful statement, you know. And I thought, what a wonderful way to think, you know, and what would be my, you know, desire when I, you know, pass away, when I'm looking back in my life, my conscience, thinking, did I do enough to live one day? Like, and then you can look at it, to live one day, as in the future, in the heavenly unified nation, or to live just one day, like, you know, like the mayfly, isn't it? The mayfly that has one day where they're alive and then they die. Would that be enough? You know, if I'd experienced it for one day, would that sustain me forever, you know? Or is it one day, as in one day there will be a heavenly unified nation and we'll all live in it for eternity? But these are such grand goals, and people look at us sometimes, you know, our opponents, and just say, you're not a real religion, you're just some cult, or you're some deluded bunch of people who are, you know, and or you're worse than that, you're just manipulating people and taking money off them, like we see in Japan at the moment, you know, where I'm sure there's been abuses, we'll say, of fundraising, and like there are in every religion and every faith. And sometimes people give and then afterwards they have regret, you know. But in general, and I actually wanted, my reading was about Japan as the Eve nation and the importance of the island nations, which in 1996, our former Taoiseach spoke at the Federation of Island Nations for World Peace, as it was called, and now UPF has since been the umbrella organizations for all these federations. But at the time, it was quite amazing to see our Prime Minister Taoiseach going over to Japan and speaking in such a public, you know, meeting of our movement. And he got, of course, inevitably got attacked by the Irish Times, the left liberal voice of Ireland, of sanity, you know, that he was being manipulated by the Moonies and all the usual sort of stuff that they throw at us, you know. And back then his speaker fee wouldn't have been, maybe it was a lot compared to for the time. And recently we saw, you know, important leaders going to the world summits, and we see this accusation that we're just, you know, we're not a real religion, and we're just using these people to enhance our influence, our sinister influence on the world. And I mean, if you drill down into this and you actually investigate this issue, and you see, like, number one, are we a real faith? Are we a real religion? I'm sure everyone in this room believes we are. And we've dedicated our lives to establishing blessed families and to going this way. And we know there's always difficulties. There's always things that we're not proud of and things that go wrong. But still, we know that most of our brothers and sisters' motivations are actually always well motivated almost. Now, sometimes because of our fallen nature and we have different conflicts and clashes and we question each other's motivations maybe at times, but we know that we're coming from a place of, I have fallen nature. I think I'm acting in the public interest the whole time. And James, he couldn't be acting in the public interest. Like he's got something else going on there. He's trying to enrich himself, But I don't think we think like this generally. Yeah, because sometimes we do, yeah. And sometimes it's conflict, and conflict is normal. Because how do you resolve something without discussing it? But anyway, I really wanted to focus on gratitude. And like, I had to go to a funeral during the week of a family member. She died I thought she was 50, but she's actually 49 of cancer. And this family has had a lot of tragedy. They're cousins of mine. And not tragedy, but like people passing away, maybe you're too young. They've had the uncle passed away as well, very young with cancer as well. And you ask God when you see the situation, how does God allow this like to happen? And somebody can be suffering for cancer from years, a young person with a young family, young kids, a young wife. She was 49, 50. You might think that's old, some of you second gen, but actually, you might think I'm old. I probably am old compared to you, but I'm not that old. Eli used to remember when he was, in his 20s. Now he's pushing, he's coming up on the old big 40 now. So even he's starting to realize passage of time affects everybody. We're all going to pass away sometime. I'm not trying to be, morbid here, but the reality is this is a great time to be alive. It's a great time to be on earth. It's great to be alive. That's the gratitude bit I'm talking about, because we don't know when it will end. And I know we hear this all the time, but it's only when you see a young person being taken away before their time, because no young person should die young, then you start to see how little actually time we have on earth and how important it is to use this time every day. It's only as you get older, when you have less energy and less ability to affect the world, less inspiration, that you learn that lesson that every day is precious, because you don't know whether it'll be your last. And it informs the way you think about everything. It really does. You realize you don't have as much time as you thought you had for, I'm not saying you can't relax and take it easy, of course, but maybe you want to do that with someone else. Maybe you want to give somebody a call, or maybe you want to talk to a friend you haven't seen in a while. We went to a wedding, I think it was last month. Yeah. Danny and I was so looking forward to this, and you have to make all your preparations, and you have to give your, your, not donation, but your wedding gift. You have to get your suit ready, and you have to make sure that, the house is okay, kids are okay, everything. And you try and, sell it to your missus that, even though they're all your friends, that she will have a good time, even though she doesn't know anybody. And you can't go on your own. And if you have to go on your own, you're not going to go, because you want to be there with your spouse, But it was like a class reunion for me, because I hadn't seen these guys and their wives, some of them. Like one guy I hadn't seen for 19 years. He'd been in China, and he was like one of my best mates growing up. I was so looking forward to seeing him and his family, his wife, and all the other people that we met. My former classmates or former friends I used to hang out with. But because I don't live down there anymore and they've moved away, this was a chance to catch up after years and years. So it's funny how when you meet them again, it's almost like, yeah, you can see some changes in some of them. All right, life has been hard on some of them, but others, they're just almost exactly the same, just a few gray hairs in terms of how you imagine them and their character. And of course they've got family and stuff. But so we had a great day. It was like we danced till 2 or 3 in the morning. I know it's 80s and all that. Don't judge us, but they did have some more up-to-date music. Well, that's it, like dance being, in quotes. Well, I thought I was anyway. It's right in my head. This was dancing. But I mean, that's the bit you focus on. You didn't focus on the fact that yeah. I mean, I was there till 3 in the morning. We were there at 3 in the morning. Like that never happens. Like that was the first time we'd been out in 20 years. In any sort of way like that. Maybe my sister's wedding a couple of years ago, but we didn't. Like I didn't know half of them. These were my friends. This was my friend getting married. And all my homies, like, and it was like, wow, like this is like going back in time, like to the 80s or the 90s. This is unreal. Like this is like I don't care how much I have to pay for this experience. Like this is brilliant, So you try to The danger is you try to relive it and it won't live up to the billing, you know, you'd be disappointed. But no, I think, you know, that was a danger, but it wasn't really like, I mean, you're old enough and wise enough to know you can't actually go back to, you know, because I mean, I still have dreams about the leaving cert and things like that, you know, and dreams about those times about failing the leaving cert, you know, even though like I have an honors degree, I have 2 degrees, and I'm going for a master's, but I'll never get over the fact of the leaving cert. Like it's a horrible thing to do to anybody to give them a leaving cert. Like bring me out to a tribe in Africa somewhere and let me do a initiation ceremony where we have to fight each other to the death. But don't ask me to do the bloody leaving cert. That's far more stressful, you know. But I mean, anyway, so your young years obviously inform your life, but as you get older, and you know, I'm not saying like I don't, of course, you know, we can't dwell on the fact that life is temporal and we're going to go. But I think gratitude is so important. I mean, I've had lots of struggles, and this year as well. I mean, having to change jobs and wondering would I ever get another job again, and how do you survive financially, and you start getting stressed, you know, and then you have to take a breath and say, no, look, I have to just have faith in God. And God has come up trumps for me every time. And every time I still go back and I have doubts and I'm complaining and say, why do I have to work so hard or to get a job or a stable job or stable situation, or dealing with, you know, people at work. I was going to use an expletive that I don't like or that I can't get on with, or being part of a team. I mean, this is like, it's exhausting. Like, can you, Heavenly Parent, can you not just give me a break here? Like, I'm trying to do my best. I'm trying to do some mission, I'm trying to do some public work. Would you think you'd give me some stable external situation so I don't have to deal with all the rest? You know, I can concentrate on the mission, which presumably you want all of us to do. Heavenly Parent wants us, I guess, to do something in mission, in life of faith, on whatever level we can, because we're not so many. And even if we were, there's a lot of work to do. So we have always this challenge of providing for ourselves, and while also trying to do something, you know, in terms of public life. So for me, I had to just step back and just be grateful for everything I have, because you can lose perspective so easy. So when I went to the wedding and I saw the situation of my friends, you know, it was kind of basically, you know, the ones who were always studious and who worked hard were still working hard and doing well and had successful lives and were well off in good situations. And then there's variations on that all the way down the line, depending on their personality and their aptitude for work, or their, how would you say, their predisposition towards trying to be successful, we say, or they're striving to be successful. So yeah, my takeaway was like, actually, compared to where I was back then 30 years ago when I was hanging out with these guys and where I am now, I would never have really dreamed I could get to this level. And none of them would have thought I would have got to that level either. That's the important point. But the key difference is God in life of faith. I'm not saying none of them have God or a life of faith, to different degrees than maybe they have. But I'd like to think that that is the key ingredient in my life compared to them. I think it's the case for most of our friends in school, for example. They may not be as religious as we presumably are, or as devoted to a life of faith, or as, you know, I'm not sure, and maybe some exceptions would say strong Christians or strong Muslims. But so I again, the feeling was gratitude. The takeaway was gratitude. Thank you so much, God, for bringing me through parents into our movement. And you know, since the summertime, since the Abe assassination, and then my initial reaction was, well, so what? Like, I mean, that's just Japan. No one cares over here. But then within a week, when nobody was pointing the fingers or saying anything or accusing us here in Ireland of anything, it was like, fine, like it's going to blow away, hopefully, fingers crossed. But then you start to realize that as the weeks go on, this isn't going away. More and more articles start to come out. In Japan, it's caused absolute devastation to our members who are being accused for, you know, sharp practices in fundraising, and this is the grudge that the assassin had against us, you know. And then you start to see the effect it has and how our whole movement is affected Now, it doesn't affect you and I day to day, and people on the street don't know about it in Ireland. But having said that, your family might know, or you get a journalist calling and he's looking for a story, and then it's like the Independent there. The day we went fishing, it was the Sunday Independent. We were fishing on Hoth with the second gen. I wasn't fishing. I was sitting on the dock of the bay, reading the Independent. Picture of all these people getting married in a mass wedding, and then the story about how the journalist came into this Unity House and was trying to figure out what's going on here, like what's all this fuss about, because we hadn't heard from these people for so long. Yeah, he said we were away with the fairies, right? What does that mean? Does anyone know what away with the fairies means? Is it an Irish expression? Yeah. Yeah. You're away with the fairies. You're in the world of your own. You're kind of also not relatively. Yeah. Well, is it true? You see, yeah. I mean, maybe to a degree it was. Like, we're keeping the head down. Like, don't say anything, and people won't notice. And I was like, I love that, because it means you can continue to do your work, and you don't have to have awkward conversations with people about your faith and all that. And but in today's climate, and I am saying this to second gen because you have the same challenges, maybe in a different way than what us first gen had. And we thought this era was over, where you're going to be persecuted for your faith. And that a lot of the first gen that would have been full time. So you were going out with some fundraising product, maybe a One World, where it was clear who you were and what you were doing, or it didn't take much to figure out anyway. So then you were confronted with this every day. It's like you were forged, into steel through this. Persecution was your daily diet. You lived off it. I'm not saying you thrived on it. It broke a lot of people, and some of us are still scarred. But to see this kind of atmosphere maybe raising its head again is not so nice in many ways, but in other ways, it can actually have some positive thing. You have to take something positive out of the negative, like I think. But my heart anyway, and my feeling, because I don't think it really will affect us here in Ireland, because the reality is, if we're not doing much, we're not going to be. But even if we were doing a lot, then I think people have moved on here anyway with this type of story, and they would separate maybe what's going on in Japan from what's going on here. But having said that, I think it's incumbent upon us to bring it to people's attention what is going on in Japan. Because is it fair that the Eve Nation, and this was my little quotation from Honda K about the Eve Nation, the island nation of Japan, which, God has called, God has chosen, and they have stepped up. And nobody could, you couldn't have more, the admiration that I have anyway, I don't know if you share this, for Japan and Japanese members and what they've done since presumably they became Eve Nation, is immense. And I think that's the real reason that this is going on deep down. You can blame the communists, you can blame, I think even the Christians actually are not happy about this. I saw an article in the Asian Catholic News yesterday that our media group distributed, where they were complaining about the treatment. This is Catholics now complaining about the treatment of the Unification Church in Japan. There's a few comments at the end of the article. One of them from Ireland. I'll let you have a look at it yourself. And he was worried that there might be copycat killings in other countries. Right? Now, okay, that was just a comment. You're entitled to comment what you like, but the article itself was incredibly supportive of religious freedom in Japan and Unification Church, very respectful. This is a Catholic commenter, author. And this is significant because the Guardian and the Times and like the Times just basically resends whatever the Guardian in England, the Irish Times will just parrot whatever the Guardian, because they have a guy in Japan, Justin McCurry, and he's the president of the press club in Japan, the Foreign Press Club. And he's obviously in the pocket of because the Guardian's a left liberal paper anyway. So it's his natural, every article he writes in The Guardian, and he's in Japan, so he's like the authority, is negative. It's also parroting the Japanese government's line that we're bad people, we're bad people, we're taking money off people and screwing them and making them bankrupt, evil cult. And the fact that, half the ruling party was involved with us in the past. Well, we're not going to have that anymore. That's in the past. What were they doing? Like, were they all being paid by us to stand up and say that they agree with being anti-communist, you see? Because at the end of the day, this is what it's about. It is about that. And I know we shouldn't blame communists for everything, but the reality is, in Japan, Abe made his reputation on being an anti-communist. And who's the biggest anti-communists in the world? Us, true father. So who are they going to attack? Who is it in their interest to do down in Japan and try and get in a left-wing Chinese sympathetic government? Us. Now, I'm not saying we are without sin and we should reform our practices and behave, what is it about Caesar? Caesar's wife should be above reproach or something, we should be, of course, above reproach and have the highest standards. But we are human and we do make mistakes, and we will continue to make mistakes until we're perfect. And I don't see that day coming anytime soon. So I think when President Balcom on his prayer call last Wednesday, I know he's frustrated. He came here to Ireland. I was wondering, why did he come here to Ireland? Why? He doesn't seem to care much about us before. And that was unfair, actually, I guess, that assumption, because, the guy is in charge of how many nations? 50, 70 nations in the UME region. And he comes over here and spends an evening with us. And you know what? I realized he was trying desperately to find somebody in Ireland that cared about the situation in Japan, maybe our former Taoiseach or some important VIP that he could talk to try and get some leverage or influence in the Japanese situation, which was in the Human Rights Council. Japan are to be censured in the Human Rights Council if that vote goes our way for their behavior towards unificationists. It's absolutely disgusting what's going on. And members are being attacked, their houses are being attacked. Why? And why now? So I think it's incumbent upon us to inform ourselves about this issue. I'm not that well up on it. Like, any of us can find out. It's going to be in the media whether we like it or not, just like it was in the Sunday. It's going to be it was in the Times last week. Again, it was the article that came from The Guardian. Well, like, if we're talking to people who in Ireland, actually they'll be quite neutral because they're not going to have an axe to grind or an agenda. Of course, it's the usual lefties, but they don't know as much as we would know about this issue. So it's very easy to get our talking points right and to say, no, actually, what's going on is disgraceful. And it's not just unificationists that get a hard time, as I understand. I'm not an expert on Japan, but anyone who's not from that culture will struggle to make an impact on that culture, particularly Christians. And that's why that Catholic writer was so supportive, And I'm going to finish in a minute, but my response to the article yesterday was a quote. I don't know if you know, it's a famous quote from a German. He's a German philosopher about World War II when the Holocaust was happening. And he said, first they came for the socialists and we said nothing. Next they came for the Christians and we said nothing. Next they came for the gypsies and we said nothing. Then they came for the Jews and we said nothing. Then they came for us, but there was no one left to stop it, to stop them from taking us. So, like, it's all right burying our head in the sand and being an ostrich when there's things we don't want to talk about, we don't want to discuss. Oh, I don't want your fight. It's your fight. I don't care. I want an easy life. Be an international ostrich. Yeah, ass in the air. I don't like talking about things that are difficult. I'd love an easy life. I'd love it. And I'm not saying that everything that I want or Eli wants is God's will and the truth. I don't know. I think let's talk it out. Let's see what God wants, because I don't know exactly. I'm not presumptuous enough to assume that I know everything what God wants. Yeah, let's talk it out and try and do it rationally and as a family, as people who love each other, who will all have the best interests at heart here. We do. We just have different opinions. And we're not going to get to the solution. The Pope is elected to, even the Pope is elected through quite small, that comes as a result of a vote. A consensus, was it a consensus? I'm sure it comes to a consensus, but only after there's been a lot of votes. Yeah. The British elected a prime minister recently, again, yeah, every day, like a new one. But it wasn't a representative sample of their Conservative Party, never mind the nation. When Truss came in, I think it was like less than 1% or something of the Conservative Party, never mind the British people voted for her. No wonder she didn't last very long. No, democracy is not the answer to everything, but it's one of the solutions in a headwind world where God is present. God can work through democracy better than he can work through communism or through fascism or authoritarianism. It's not perfect, but it's the best system we have. Anyway, I just want to close and just on the point of gratitude and ask us all to pray for Japan and to try and stand up for Japan in whatever way we can. It was beautiful that John and Ty and Mie, I don't know if you were there, Vita, maybe, went to the Japanese embassy to give condolences for Abe's assassination, because he was a real hero, actually, of unificationism. You know, he didn't, I'm sure he wasn't doing it for the money. I mean, he was prime minister for years and years and years. I'm sure he appreciated so much the support of the unificationists for his political agenda, which was to keep communism out of Japan. And the military question was a big one. Communists love pacifism. But that's not much good to you if you're staring down the barrel of the gun of authoritarianism. You need to have a defense. You need to defend yourself. So let's pray for Japan and our Eve nation, because I don't see any other Eve nation being able to. I know God can lift up a chosen people from the stones, like he did with Abraham. From those stones, he can raise up and you was it Abraham or Moses? I think it was Abraham. He said it when they were worried whether they were the chosen people or not, or if they needed to go this course. God reminded them, I can lift up a new chosen people from the stones, but I don't see Japan being replaced. In fact, I see Japan being even stronger as an Eve nation after this, and people's faith being tested like this. But we have to support them. We have to support Japan. Britain's not going to be the Eve nation. Canada, Philippines, they're never going to replace. I think Japan has made its position clear for forever as an Eve nation due to this. Just like Ukraine has now become a nation. Maybe it was in the past in the shadow of Russia. But by God, doesn't everyone respect Ukraine and how brave they are? And this country has done its bit in supporting Ukraine. We don't even have them any more accommodation, but we're still saying, okay, we're not saying don't come if you're from Ukraine. We're just saying we can't guarantee that we're going to be able to put you up somewhere, which is true. We can't even put up our own people, so many homeless, but still, we've done what we can and we continue to do what we can for Ukraine. But by God, what Ukraine has become like a byword or a symbol or a metaphor for bravery. Crazy bravery. Who stands up and does this against such a mighty nation like Russia? So we need to pray for Japan, and our members there. I'm sure many of them would like to bury their head in the sand and pretend they're not members. It wasn't me, not me. I'm not one of them. Nobody throw stones at my house, because in Japan, if as I understand it, if things are bad in the media, it's shameful. You're shamed if you're a unificationist. It's not just like, you're a bit nuts or you're away with the fairies or you're a bit deluded. No, you are a pariah, an outcast. Yeah? So we need to pray for these poor brothers and sisters. I'll just close there with a prayer. In the name of you, Heavenly Parent, we thank you, Heavenly Parent, that we live in a free democratic country here in Ireland, and please help us to make the best of the opportunities that we have going forward, and to be proud of our faith and proud of our true parents, and please help Japan in this time as our Eve nation, as an island nation like ourselves, Heavenly Parent, that we can fulfill our responsibility and that we can keep the world safe. So for your ideal, your beautiful ideal of families, blessed families, Heavenly Parent, when we see so much struggle in the world and so much difficulty, Heavenly Parent, we ask you to guide us and to help us and to give us strength. And we're sorry sometimes if we're not grateful, but we ask you, Father, to, Heavenly Parent, to please intervene in our lives, even though sometimes we don't deserve it, Heavenly Parent, and that we can work together as a federation, as a family federation in Ireland and throughout the world, and centering on our true parents, our true mother, who's trying desperately to establish your sovereignty on earth, to have one day in the and to live one day in the heavenly nation, Heavenly Parent. We pray for the new temple that's going to be built in Cheongpyeong, that this can be a place where all of us can go, where all of us can share, and where all of us can be able to talk to you directly and talk to True Father directly, and True Mother. Please God, she won't pass for many, many more years, but when she does, we can talk to her directly. And we pray for our brothers and sisters, not just in Japan, but throughout the world, and the battles for succession that we've seen, that they can stop, and that the true family can unite, and that we can have a united sovereignty here on earth, centering on you. And eventually, Heavenly Parent, we know, we believe that one nation will accept our true parents. And already, Heavenly Parent, we've seen many, many good prime ministers and leaders who have come very close to accepting our true parents. But please help the people us to educate our brothers and sisters, our tribes, our families, our people, so that everybody can come to this realization in a way that's democratic and not forced upon anybody, Heavenly Parent, because this is not your idea. I want to pray and report that you guide us this new week, and offer this and pray and report this in my name, Colm of the County Blessed Family.
Thank you very much for sharing with us. I'm sure there's a lot we have to reflect on and pray about.